Coalition is an activist organization that believes in self-determination for African people is led by the African people. We're happy to welcome you here today. Now I'm gonna pass it on over to you, Tana.
Yahoo, everybody. Like you said, my name is Tana Shakur. I'm here with Amlo. Give me 1 second. How y'all feeling today? Good. All right, I am amazing. All right, so upon his return, right, as soon as Donald Trump got in office, he amplified the attacks against diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. His administration has renamed institutions for Confederate figures and overturned previous diversity initiatives inside government appointments. President Trump has threatened to withhold federal funding from educational institutions with DEI programming. This is the fourth and most intense wave of attacks against African-led education initiatives in recent years. As DUI, let's make sure you listen, DEI initiative. Also, just as a disclaimer, I got my 4 wisdom tooth pulled out. I didn't know if it was that intense, so I'm recovering, right? So I'm on some pain medication, so please work with it, sister, right? As DEI initiatives, critical race theory, and Black studies come under attack, today's guests agree the solution is to build power in the hands of the African community to struggle for Black community control of education. Point 13 of the Black is Black Coalition National Black Political Agenda states the following on education. We demand the right to free education through postgraduate level, right, all the way to the top. Public schools must meet the highest standards of excellence under the supervision of educational boards directly elected by the communities they serve. We oppose both for-profit schooling and philosophies of teaching that put profit over human development. And we support democratic educational values and strategies that empower students and their communities to determine their own destiny. In the immediate term, Black people in the U.S. need education that facilitates our liberation from white supremacy and corporate hegemony. Did I say that word right?
Yes.
All right. So.
Yes, ma'am. We English is a colonial language. Right. So for today's agenda, y'all, we're definitely we're going to address concerns that we have as an African community. We will also call on you to join in organization with us. Build Black community control of education, placing power to determine the future of our children in our own hands. Right now, we're gonna have the babies come up and do the we're gonna do the African national fight song, and that's gonna be written, and that was written and produced by Elikia Ngoma, the maestra of the Uhuru movement and the Black is Back Coalition. You'll find the words to sing along with us on the screen, y'all.
But everybody, please just go.
Yeah.
Africa's best.
Just want to make sure you guys are up, go exercise today. You can get all your steps in. We care about you here, right? So that was a beautiful song. Long live the liberation of our African nation, right? So now, I don't think this mic is on, but I feel like holding it. So right now, we're gonna have Don from the Black is Back Coalition's Youth and Student Working Group. He's gonna do a presentation and he's gonna let us know what they've been working on so far and how we can join. All right, can we give it up for Don? Yes.
Don't worry, y'all. So the Black is Back Coalition put out the request for students to organize last year under the mission to win Black youth and to a national political agenda for self-determination. It is our mission to win Black youth and students into national youth organization and into the Youth and Student Working Group, and to build the Black is Back Coalition to capacity. The Youth and Student Working Group functions as a subcommittee of the Black is Back Coalition under the leadership of the International Steering Committee of the Black is Back Coalition. As a subcommittee, it is our job, the Youth and Student Working Group, to win the masses of African youth and students onto the national Black agenda, political agenda. So last year we had our first meeting in March of 2024, and we got familiar with reviewing the Black is Back Coalition, and we were also asked to be on the program for the 8th Electoral School, and that's where Chair Emmanuel gave the presentation last year, and then in May of 2024, we had our Black is Back training school. The Youth and Student Working Group also attended the Black Mothers March during Mother's Day, which is coming up again. So the goals of the Youth and Student Working Group per our first meeting were to establish the working group, right? Initiate political educations with the members and based on the Black is Back Coalition platform, explain who we are, our demands and our agenda and our principles of unity. We also sought to bring member organizations to join the Youth and Student Working Group. And we take on specific campaigns and issues that our members are interested in. And we will recruit, and we are recruiting and building. My leadership body consists of my chair, Comrade Emmanuel Maku, myself as deputy chair, my secretary, Jewel, she's present with us today, and also our brilliant agitprop coordinator, Soliana. So y'all, in July of last year, we participated in the Black is Back outreach at the International African Arts Festival in Brooklyn, New York. We met with student leaders, connected with youth in the Northeast connected with Youth in Northeast Political Prisoner Coalition, and working together on introducing the question of Black political prisoners to our schools. We also worked with Comrade Sister Betty Davis on how to adopt a school.
Remember to tell them when you switch the sides.
Got it. And we're also and we're working on that, and we are united on that campaign to adopt the school. Next slide. So in July of 2024, if y'all can see it in pictures, that's how we got out at the Brooklyn festival, at the International African Arts Festival in Brooklyn. On that next slide. Next slide. During the summer of last year, we participated in All Out to St. Petersburg, Florida for this Freedom Summer 2024. Next slide. The Youth and Student Working Group united to participate in St. Petersburg, Florida on the Freedom Summer initiative. And we participated in community and campus outreach. building community rallies, and our growing media army. Next slide, please. And we united with the cadre building period under the slogan, "Not one generation more," from the call to join the electoral campaign last April per Political Education. The working group, you moved to create Freedom Summer / SNCC style organizing to go back into the campus and organize, and initiated officially the campaign to adopt schools. Next slide. Freedom Summer steeled the youth and student working group comrades and helped to excel leadership development and confidence of its members. The youth and student working group excitement is as high as ever. Woo! We moved to quicken the rate at which we meet, and we initiated our bi-weekly meetings. We changed our bi-weekly meetings to weekly meetings, right? And then we focused on cadre building and also building our political education regime. Next slide. So that October 2024, we had to have all them, y'all remember, we had them letters written for the Uhuru 3. And we worked to build the Black is Back coalition for the Black People's March on both the East Coast and the West Coast. And we started to draft our youth and student working group manual. Next slide. So then we have November, where we participated in the march on both the East and the West Coast, bringing youth and students. Next slide. Also in November, we had our first group political education, and we decided that we would do those bi-weekly, host those bi-weekly. And in this year, we are working on initiatives such as guerrilla studies, as y'all seen. And then we're getting going on our people's revolutionary education for political power, where Comrade Chair will break down the rules and procedures and the methodology that the movement uses. And eventually this year we'll have a youth and student conference. And of course, we keep building the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa campaign. Next slide. Y'all, in December, we held our second and third group political education, and we gave tribute to the immortal comrade Ralph Pointer, and we did outreach and attended the Uhuru 3 sentencing. Victory to the Uhuru 3. Y'all, for not one day, not one dollar. Training also started among the members, and we learned how to build a plan of action. And then we got to draft. We did our first draft for the African Internationalist Study Hour, with which many of you participated in. And we started working on the plan of action for 2025. Next slide, please. So in December, we decided that our theme was reinforcements on the way, our future in our hands, and the counteroffensive continues. Next slide. So in 2024, we built the Youth and Student Working Group during a very intense period, right? We deepened unity and excitement throughout the entire movement. Forces were forged and steeled through the practical Freedom Summer and Hands Off Uhuru work. Cadre development started, and we maintained our regular weekly meetings as well as our bi-weekly Youth and Student Working Group program. We've also begun to adopt schools. In the Buena Park District, we have currently adopted both Corey Elementary and Buena Park Junior High School, where my nieces go. Next slide. Y'all, in the future, we're gonna have more of these African Internationalist Study Hours. We will train youth and student recruits through our prep course. We also held a celebration of life for Malcolm X. And we're going to continue recruitment and building, and we will finish our cadre development. Well, cadre development is never finished. We're always building that. And so next slide, y'all, we need you. We are calling all youth and all students And students, I would like to point that out, student instructors, and you work at a school, you are also students. We need concerned parents as well. Just like we have the input of my co-MC Itana, who makes sure that her kids have the instruction that they need at that school. And she'll tell you more about that later. The Youth and Student Working Group is looking to build. We're looking to win our outreach coordinator. We need a social media coordinator, and we'll also eventually have a liaison who will directly communicate the needs of the schools that we adopt, who will directly communicate the needs of the schools that we adopt to the steering committee. Technology, y'all, give me 1 second. We need y'all to go to the blackisbackcoalition.org and join either as an individual or as an organization. And down there, you'll also see our email, the Youth and Student Working Group email, real easy to remember, YSWG4uhuru at gmail.com. Last slide, please. And so we want to thank you and remind y'all that reinforcements are on the way, and solidify that Black is back. Uhuru. We're gonna have Itana come back up, and she'll bring in the next part of our program. Uhuru.
Yeah, Uhuru. I mean, give it up one more time. The Youth for Working Student Collective is doing a lot, right? Some very important work. So right now, we're going to bring up another organization in the community that's doing some amazing work, which I am honored to be a part of as well, the African National Women's Organization. So I would like to bring up Mecca. Masa Mela signaling me to stay on script. So you wonder why I'm looking down, like, okay, we're not improving. I got it. All right, well, right now, no, we can have Mecca go ahead and just talk about AMWO for us. Okay, so the African National Women's Organization.
Okay, so the African National Women's Organization was created in 2015, and it is a part of the YSWG group. And the African National Women's Organization is, in my opinion, one of the best organizations for African women. The fact of the matter is, we know what the problem is. It's colonialism, and you have a lot of people that highlight what's going on. But what about solutions? And solution is programs that are going to allow us to be self-determined. So I know we're going to be speaking about the role of African women in education. So the African National Women's Organization is an anti-imperialist and anti-colonial revolutionary African internationalist organization. And we organize around the pressing local, national, and international issues that add to the special oppression of African women and men. I'm not really good at that. So the mission and vision of the African National Women's Organization is to be the political home for African women and especially oppressed segments of the African nation, to empower and advance our issues by effecting change, politically, socially, and economically, through collective organizing and sisterhood, and to create a world where African women have agency and are valued and protected and are the makers and shapers of new society. So one of the leading campaigns of AMWO is the Uhuru Kijiji Child Care Collective. And it's a dual power, do for self institution, run by AMWO and our volunteers. The Uhuru Kijiji Freedom Village and Child Care Collective takes the child care and education of our children out of the hands of the state that colonized, oppressed, and killed us, and our children and empower the parents and our community to assume responsibility for the welfare of African children. So that is one of the programs.
All right, so give it up for AMWO. All right, so
Can I ask you a question at a time?
Yes, sir.
This February, you're a mother,
Right, yes.
and this February, I know that AMWO took this question of African history, Black history to the schools. Why did you find that to be important?
Right. So I think, thank you for that question, especially because we're here talking about education, right? And the need to have control over our own education. So as we know, February is Black History Month. And at my son's school, they really didn't have a program, right? And even if they did have a program, because of the school, they would only be taught about Black history in the way of us being colonized, right? So what I did was I got one of the elders in the community, and we made an African art gallery at the school. And we had all the classes come in, and we talked about African history. And then also I did a presentation of Black inventors. It showed them that everything that was made by Black people that they were using every single day, right? And this is a program that I would like to continue. We don't have to wait for our schools to educate our kids, right? We don't have to have a big program. We can just, if you have a kid that attend a school, it's really easy to go to that teacher, go to that school and say, hey, this month we're talking about this. I would like to read a book. I would like to do a program. And they'll be open to it. So I was very proud to do that, and also with AMWO and to have the support of people in the community.
And so like you were saying, the program that she initiated in her son's school was self-determination. And again, that's why AMWO is so powerful, because we're not waiting for our process to free. Again, we are our own liberators. The colonizer is not just gonna allow us to go. You feel me, with sleight of hand alone. And we don't want their reforms, we don't want their crumbs, we want to build for ourselves. And when we think about the role of African women in education, it's very important. The movement, for instance, the Black nationalist movement or revolutionary movement, as we see, was had large contributions from African women. Ella Baker, for instance, the bus boycott that was so successful, she was the strategic mind behind that, teaching and educating. And then when we think about people like Malcolm X, we think about Kwame Ture, formerly known as Stokely Carmichael. They actually learned at the hands of people like Queen Mother Moore, who helped to shape the ideology. So we have a very important role. Women are mothers. We're the first teacher of the children. And so we help to shape the society. But, we are teachers. It's a natural role.
Thank you so much, Comrade Mecca. And I need y'all to know that Comrade Mecca is one of my favorite community historians. Y'all, so next we're gonna hear from Tasha Thomas of the Joko Collective. Joko Collective is a grassroots learning cooperative founded in February of 2014 in LA. They work towards becoming better informed, more refined group of thinkers in alignment with academic, artistic, and cultural roots of our resistance tradition, and scrutinize the ideas that we currently rely on, right? Their goal is in-depth understanding of the issues that affect African people's bid for empowerment. And we also seek to understand the empowerment struggles of oppressed peoples, regardless of ethnic and cultural difference. So I'm pleased and honored to present to you Sister Tasha Thomas.
Ooh, I laughed because I literally just walked in the door. GPS first told me I'd be here at 2:30, and then it said, not so much. So, yes, right. So you'll get there eventually. So greetings, everybody. And the little intro about Joko Collective is quite on point in what we usually offer. And a couple of things that I would want to emphasize about Joko, or a couple of parts that I want to tell, is that it was conceived, the need for it was conceived in response to, kind of watching spurious narratives creep into community conversation, right? I don't need to enumerate those that were most popular at the time, but things that can be seen now in issues like the resurfacing of flat earth believers, right? Of folk who will argue with you that people of African descent are actually the original indigenous people of Turtle Island, of this place, right? People will have conversations with you about a myth, or attempt to have a conversation with you about, right, the enslavement and transport of African peoples here as a myth, because if that was so, then we're the slave ships. And we've heard some of these, right, in conversation with our with members in our community, and very much from people in spaces where they consider themselves to be cultivating consciousness, right? And so this was happening in intimate space with me because my ex-husband was latching on to these narratives, right? And it absolutely ended the relationship and birthed Joko Collective, right? And Joko is a Yoruba term that means sit down, and also refers to the process, a community process, a cultural process of problem solving, right? Discussion, argumentation that folks engage in to solve problems, right? And so it speaks to the intimate practice of critical thinking, right? So what was recognized, that was not only missing, in our communities, was a critical thinking approach. So we are very beautiful in our locks, very beautiful in our attire, very beautiful in our, very clean and green diets. We spent a good couple of decades cultivating that kind of culture, but without knowledge of a Black intellectual tradition, right? And so you hear statements made like, we don't need the white man's socialism. We don't need the white man's Marxism. We don't need the this, that, and the other, because it's, right, the lack of a critical approach that's able to hold our own need for reconstructing our African identity and uplifting ourselves psychologically, right? With also understanding what our actual trajectory and liberatory tradition has been and what it's been related to, okay? So we spoke of, at that time, we're on the ground until COVID, when we went online, right? Of the problem and process of creating a replicable model of community self-education, right? Always with a consciousness that public institutions, even public education, should be fought for, right? But that those institutions underserve the communities they are propped up to serve in various ways. And as the sister has said and has been said, and is said and said, that the information that we need to know, we will have to teach ourselves, right? And we'll have to cultivate ourselves, right? So looking at the onslaught, the contemporary onslaught, right? And if these folks are successful, they will be entrenched. We will find ourselves without civil rights. We will find ourselves without, backdoor way, they're already talking the states' rights conversation with, whereas if we know our history, we know what that means. We should know what that means as Black people, right? And brown people, and right, everybody needs to understand where that's going. We're being hit with all kinds of whammies, right? Material whammies, as they're cutting social programs, and also this attack on, certainly the dismantling of the Department of Education, an attack on universities, it's an attack on an idea, right? And certainly if a French scientist can be rejected at the border for having and sent back to France, right? We've heard about this, right? Guy came over, French scientist was trying to come over to attend in fact, I think he was a climate scientist, to attend a conference, right? And Customs and Border Patrol, right? In league with the Israeli, the Israeli army, of course, right? Trained and in league with the Israeli army, by the way. Kind of took him through the process, and on his phone found his comments critical of this eradication and this attack on research, right, and education. And so they said, that's hostile to Donald Trump, can be construed as terrorist language, and they turned him around, Frenchman, right? Turned him around and sent him on back to France. Okay, so we understand what's coming, what's here, and what's coming. We understand that our conversation, our comments is as it has been, as it ever has been, right? And I want to talk about plantation times when we, under penalty of death and mutilation, cannot read or discuss or show, right? These are the kinds of times that are coming when this simple conversation, right? They're going to be invoking the Patriot Act and they'll be pouring out all the stops, right? So how do we respond to that? How do we preserve and protect information, right? When so much is in a position to be wiped out at the swipe of a digital switch, right? The question of access, you probably hear a lot of people talking about that, yeah? So much is digitized, oh my God, how do we, preserve? Book bannings are happening, of course, and have been, and we've unfortunately, not all of us certainly, but folks have, the bourgeois classes have ignored that, right? And so now we're looking at the process of, burning of Alexandria, burning of a library, getting rid of any kinds of documentation. And so people are reading this, anything that contains these words, this is haphazard, this is ridiculous. It's not. It's a book burning, right? And it's not uncalculated, right? It's understood that within a couple of generations, with 2 and 3 generations, you can change a whole consciousness. And it's not unprecedented. This is how authoritarianism is done, right? So some of the questions that we are confronting with community control of education, right, is also a protection of information, right? When information becomes contraband, how do we protect it? Yeah, preserve it and disseminate it, right? Guerrilla style. And I would like to offer and project that we look to some of our ancestral ways, again, referring to those times when we taught each other to read and understand and designed escape routes at the risk of penalty of, right, the risk of mutilation and death, okay? What does that preservation look like? What is the plan? We're going to suggest that and kind of thinking out of the box, even as we are united front and vociferous about public education, even as we are looking to create institutions, that we look at what happens in our intimate space as well, right? Inroads through friends and family. How do activists rehabilitate that relationship that was so systematically and effectively cut off, right? And the activists criminalized, made a comic of, you know what I'm saying? Just that whole kind of destruction of the image of the community activist, yeah. Through regaining those, reestablishing those relationships. You know what I'm saying? One-to-one. And when I say intimate space, I'm talking about kitchen tables, talking about living rooms, talking about, right? Because if you notice, I've certainly noticed on my family thread, people are ready for a conversation. They're looking for answers. The more intense the pressure, we like to talk in terms of heightened contradictions. Contradictions are high and people are looking for answers and minds are open, right? It's a prime time to reinsert a pro-intellectual culture in the midst of a systematically anti-intellectualized American culture that affects all communities. So of course, we are organized to service our communities, Black, Brown, Indigenous communities, right? We also have to think about how we're combating illiteracy, flat eartherism, which I'm just using to refer to the whole spate of spurious narratives that are grasping our minds, right? How do we develop pedagogies, andragogies, to use big words? How do we we don't need to only educate young people, how do we inspire a pro-intellectual culture among adults, right? Which we do. I think people have been quite successful at that. Certainly, African People's Socialist Party has been quite successful at door-to-door political education and that sort of thing. How do we take it that step further, right? And make the most of this time to get people thinking about thinking again. You know, thinking about, what do I do with this stuff? And how am I a point of creativity and agency in the world? All right. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tasha. Want to do some housekeeping real quick. So first off, everybody, get on YouTube, subscribe to the Joko Collective on YouTube. Make sure that you are tapping in with all of the organizations that are coming up here today. We want to remind everybody that's present in person today that behind that door, just around the corner, over yonder, we got some accoutrements and what's hors d'oeuvres. We have some water and pizza and chips and dips for the people. And just want to remind everybody, get comfortable. We are at Now Valley Wellness, and this is our community space. Now I'm gonna bring back my co-MC Itana to move our program forward. Thank y'all so much. And also the restroom is over there too, over yonder.
Right, yeah, so talking about the Now Valley Wellness Center, we want to bring up a representative. Now, I just want to personally say, I just love this place. Like, look around, look at how beautiful it is. Just when you walk through the door, you feel the energy, right? So the Now Valley Wellness Center is a holistic wellness space, right? It serves North Long Beach, right? And when we talk about one of the ways of fighting, we talk about getting back to our ancestral ways, right? So this place is a place that helps create that, right? With the holistic remedies and everything. But I'm gonna let the sister who, own the place tell you about it.
Yes, thanks. Well, thanks. First off, it's such a pleasure to see this many faces, and this many demographics, age groups, shades represented in the space. This is exactly what this building is meant for. And so whenever we get a chance to see it utilized in such a way, we are grateful. Now Valley Wellness started as a passion project from the founder, Ebony Flower Hodge. She's actually cleaning in the back. I am the priestess of this space, so I usually do more of the public speaking and representing the business. We started as really a place for self-healing, the mind, body, and soul. Next door is our retail space. It also holds our gym and our self-care rooms. We started basically to heal ourselves in our community. We realized that the medical industry was not really serving us as a community. We were being pawned off, shuffled medicines, and really not being given the tools we needed to really live and thrive. And so from that experience and personal experiences, Nile Valley Wellness was born to teach, educate, and facilitate the health and wellness from a holistic aspect, mind, body, and soul. We do, we do teach ancient healing practices that were long forgotten. You see a lot of Kemetic imagery here. We realize that what has been left out is that scholars from all throughout the land, all throughout the world, went to ancient Kemet to learn their healing modalities, their healing techniques. And so some of the things that are common today, like yoga, meditation, herbology, these things started way back when and was shared throughout the land publicly. However, as the colonizer began to move throughout the land and reformulate with a different plan, we were bamboozled, tricked out of our own knowledge, tricked out of our history, and we suffer from amnesia. Many of us today suffer from amnesia, not connected to who we truly are and the power that we all each individually hold within our being to be able to self-heal through the power of the mind, through connecting with nature, as well as our spirit's purpose. And so that's what we do and we facilitate here. One of our foundational goals is to be able to strengthen our community through entrepreneurship. The way that we do this is several ways. First, we are an outreach ministry with Long Beach Pathways. We provide youth with job training. So each year towards the summer, we take a number of youth under our wing and we help them to start to identify their goals, their passions, their dreams, and a stream of income that can generate them money and financial resources without having to rely outside of themselves. We also do that by offering membership to the space. We are a co-working holistic wellness center. So myself and other holistic practitioners utilize the space in the building to offer resources to the community. We are purposely located right here in North Long Beach because we want to make these ancient healing practices and modalities available to those who need it the most. And because most of the time these things are inaccessible to our community, we don't know or learn about them. So our primary goal here is to educate our people on exactly who we are and the power that we have when we utilize the alchemy of the elements of nature. We harmonize with our food intake, and we really utilize self-care as a way of life. But we love having things that push us to look at what we're doing in a more political aspect as well, being the forefront of a space to gather, strategize, and really gain clarity on how we move together forward as a unit and as a collective community. So I'm really excited to just share a little bit about what we do here at Nile Valley Wellness, what Nile Valley Wellness is for. It's for freedom of expression, freedom for people to gather. We do rent out the space for anyone who is passionate about a project and wants a place for people to gather, learn, and to share their knowledge. This is truly a space for educating all colors, all creeds, no matter your religious affiliation or spiritual background. This has nothing to do with religion. This is everything to do with the spirituality and the spirit that we all live with and connecting us interconnectedly, regardless of background. Ashe?
That's my sister.
Oh, and I didn't mention I am a member of AMLO as well.
Yes. So we want to thank Nile Valley Wellness for having this space available to us. And just look and focus for a second on the work of African women and how, like Comrade Mecca said, and I'm telling you this, I'm gonna take that with me. I want to tattoo it somewhere maybe. But she said that African women are the first teachers of children. And that is so powerful. And we have to remember that I'm gonna do something with that. I'm gonna write a little something on that. Comrade Mecca, you did something there. Now I want to have, yes, we're gonna have we're gonna hear from UCLA students in Justice from Palestine. Located directly east of Egypt, Palestine came under colonial assault as part of the same regime and moment, but that we saw the partitioning of Africa in the late 1800s and early 1900s. UCLA students for Justice in Palestine have called for solidarity with the Palestinian cause and the Black struggle for liberation. At UCLA and other campuses, Black students play an important role to this organization. Black students and faculty have been attacked, vilified, and even now banned from campus. UCLA SJP will speak to their campaigns, the importance of Black and Palestinian solidarity, and draw attention to the case of Mohammed Khalil as Palestinian students facing deportation. Angelica? Yes, we got an obstacle for all of our panelists. Yes, got to keep y'all on y'all toes.
Exactly. Hey y'all, my name is Ali. I'm Palestinian. I'm a part of SJP. Very honored to be here. I guess we'll just introduce ourselves. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Angelica. I'm a part of SJP and I'm not Palestinian, I'm Salvadoran actually.
Okay, my name is Vangan. I'm a part of SJP as well, and we stand with Coalition. I am also not Palestinian. I'm Vietnamese, but obviously, like, there's a relationship between, like, you know, the Black struggle, the anti-war movement, and the Palestinian.
My name is Jill. I recently just graduated, but I was in SJP, not Palestinian. I'm Jewish and Nigerian.
Okay, so we kind of just wanted to talk a little bit about like the history of like the Black struggle and the Palestinian struggle, how that has been intertwined for a very long time, and the struggle against colonialism is obviously shared, like we know from what our sister, the Joko Collective, was talking about, like that pro-intellectualism is really important in our community, and like obviously from like academics and revolutionaries like Kwame Ture or Stokely Carmichael and Frantz Fanon, we know that like the history of Palestine is obviously something that has been studied and like consistently used as an example of colonialism and like especially like modern colonialism. And right now we're organizing for divestment. Our university currently invests billions of dollars into the Zionist entity and exports violence and surveillance to attack students on our campus, primarily like Black and brown students who are more vulnerable to policing. And this is something that we've seen consistently. Most recently, Mahmoud Khalil, which is a Palestinian student activist at Columbia University who recently graduated, was abducted and disappeared by ICE and the Department of Homeland Security. So that's something that we understand that, you know, whether it's in Palestine, whether it's on US soil, like the repression and the fascism is here and it will continue. I know Hands Off Uhuru has a campaign for President O'Malley, and you guys have been organizing around repression and you know, the abduction of your organizers as well, like the repression of your organizers. So it's really important that we keep that in mind as we organize. And then yeah, I'll pass it on to my comrade to talk about the organization.
Hi. I think like with our campaigns, like our demand is disclosure because the University of California, like even though it's a public entity, is not disclosing all of its like it's not transparent with its financial investments and transactions. And that is our first and primary like demand for our campaign is that transparency. Because we know that they do like business with like weapons manufacturers like Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, etc., and all of these other companies that invest in the Zionist entity or Israel. But yeah, that's like the first demand. And then the second demand is divestment because we already know through like this research that grad students have waged in this paper called the white paper. Sorry. Unmaskingucla.org. You can find it, the research there, but basically it discloses like a lot of like the University of California and UCLA's like investments. And that's just like from the research gathered from the grad students and like the rank and file caucus of the UAW union. And then our third one is the academic boycott because the University of California and UCLA does like study abroad programs to Israel. And obviously that contributes to the Israeli occupation of Palestine and obviously facilitates the displacement of Palestinians. And so that is like our demand is like, like because like millions of Palestinians around the world do not have that right to return. And then there's people foreign to the land of Palestine who can like use the university's money to go to the occupied Palestine in the university's name does not obviously coincide with their quote unquote like humanitarian values. And so yeah, we're demanding for a boycott. And then also our last demand is the abolishment of policing on campus. Obviously, that has been waged in the past before, for instance, during the 2020 uprising, and even before with the South African divestment movement that spurged nationally. But yeah, that is like our last demand of our campaign. As y'all know, I don't know if you guys know actually, but our encampment was like attacked by Zionists last spring, almost a year ago. Yeah, it's almost a year ago. This coming April is like the anniversary, I guess. But I wouldn't call it an anniversary. Sorry. Just like of the people, who attacked us, the Zionists, and like the cops that raided us as well. And yeah, like obviously we know that the exchange program exists like in the United States between LAPD, NYPD, all the police departments, and the Israeli occupation forces. So that is why it is our primary demand as well for our campaign. But yeah, I don't know if anyone wants to say anything. Questions?
That's kind of
So we want to thank our comments from the so sorry students for justice in Palestine. So we got to stay on script and whatnot. So
well, just so everybody knows, this is meant to be a community forum, and as a community forum, take notes. I think we even have some index cards we can pass around for you all to take questions. And the last portion of today will be an open community forum and conversation.
Yes. So just a little bit more housekeeping. We're gonna have some index cards going around, and we're gonna move on to the next portion of our program. We want to thank y'all so much for being here. We want to thank y'all for the continued solidarity. Yes. Right. So with the Palestinian movement has shown us, first off, is that the community is willing to stand between students and the pigs when it comes to, showing what needs to be done. And we want to continue to incubate those spaces. So next, we're going to have the Association of Rasa Educators. The Association of Rasa Educators, also known as ARE, was established to uphold the rights and liberties of the Rasa community. Education is essential to the preservation of civil and human rights. Last year, they celebrated their 30th anniversary. ARE was founded by members of Unión del Barrio, a fraternal organization of the Uhuru movement in the spring of 1994. And its first core membership was made of teachers from the San Diego area. ARE was organized in response to the passage of Proposition 187, a ballot initiative designed to deny so-called illegal immigrants, social services, healthcare, and public education. I will speak towards the importance of Black and Brown solidarity and in the work they do. Alfredo, if you could come on up and grace us.
Give it up for Alfredo.
Yes. Alfredo, thank you so much.
Thank you all for the wonderful introduction. You took all my lines from the beginning of my part. So, thank you all for having us. My name is Alfred Mendoza. I'm the secretary of the Association of Class Educators here in Los Angeles. My compañera Lupe Caranz, our chair, she wasn't able to join us today, but I'm here to step up and to share a little palabra of what we're doing and what's going on and like what to do, right? So, I begin by stating that at this moment, as we're seeing, right, we're witnessing the continued attacks, the continued assaults on our education, especially within what we're able to teach, what we teach, right? So not just starting today, but what we're seeing today is with a new bill that's directly targeting the education, which is Assembly Bill 1468, that is directly attempting to erase, right? Again, to erase stories, perspectives, experiences, truth, right? And what we believe is with education, right? As Omali Yeshiteli would say, right? That if education is not rooted in liberation, then it's not education, right? What we're witnessing today is an attack on academic liberty, academic freedom, right? Our quest to learn our stories, our quest to learn truth, and our quest for justice is being hijacked, right? Our narrative is being hijacked, our education is being hijacked. So this bill, right, Assembly Bill 1468, is a direct attack on ethnic studies. We see a Zionist lobby, right, here in California, attempting to erase Palestinian voices, attempting to erase the struggle for liberation in Palestine. So what we're witnessing today is this continued erasure, this continued attempt to make our schools, especially for Black and Brown youth, to make these schools more like boarding schools that our indigenous native ancestors had experienced, right? Which is a genocide of the mind, right? A genocide of what our students are learning. Just back in 2021 too, right? The state of California passed its model curriculum for ethnic studies, and in the state's attempt too, right? They also eliminated affirmations such as In La Quech, right? A Mayan inspired affirmation, right? And also Ashe were both eliminated, right? These two beautiful pieces of culture, right? Of healing, right, for our youth, right, have been hijacked, right? They've been erased from the model curriculum. And now they're trying to erase our students or our understanding of, or our critique and our analysis of the Palestinian struggle. So what we're witnessing today is this continued colonial tactic of erasure, right? And genocide of the mind and of the body as well, right? Right now, I'd like to argue that our schools continue to produce the failures, right? And those failures are reflected in our prisons, where our prisons are predominantly Black and brown, and now we're continuing to kill our babies' ability to learn about themselves, our babies' ability to heal through their cultura, right? And we like to say our cultura pura, our culture, our traditions heal, right? We heard about these beautiful ancient practices that this space itself is trying to connect our youth with, right? And our state is directly killing those bridges, directly killing these attempts that we're trying to heal or install in our youth, which are the critical thinking skills, the knowledge of self, the knowledge of their histories, and not just histories here within the settler state of the US, but their histories abroad, right? Connecting third world understandings, connecting colonized peoples across the world, right? And that's what we want to fight for, to keep ethnic studies with the spirit, the black prolific fire, with the brown prolific fire, with all these third world liberation front, what the third world liberation front intended to, which is to be critical of capitalism, to be critical of colonialism, to be critical of all these colonial tentacles, white supremacy, erasure, genocide, dehumanization, demonization of our people. So what the state is doing right now, it is hijacking ethnic studies, it is whitewashing it, it is sanitizing it from the true analysis of these tentacles that we see in settler colonialism. So as you know, this attempt, right, is right in our faces. The erasure is right in our faces, and what we're doing here is, you know, just trying to encourage all of us to not only directly call your assembly members, right, that are trying to erase our cultura, but also to continue to base our education and liberation, because as we're seeing, they're trying to make our schools into boarding schools again, and you know, we're going to continue to see the erasure, but you know, our all these beautiful movements here today are directly addressing that need to not allow them to erase, to not allow them to hijack our beautiful teachings that all our babies are deserve to learn about. So thank you, and uhuru.
Thank you, thank you. So right now, we will hear from one of our own native Long Beach people. Here we go. So we would like to have right now one of our main speakers for today's event, Master Teller. He's a professor of Black Studies at San Diego Mesa College. Dr. Odom has published numerous articles on the history of Black people throughout Southern California, analyzing the civil rights and the Black power movements, police brutality, segregation, and the crack cocaine epidemic, hip hop music, white hate groups, and Black resistance rebellions. Dr. Odom has also served as the international president of the International People Democratic Uhuru Movement and is a steering committee member of the Black is Back Coalition. Y'all give it up for Professor Master Odom.
That's all right. That's all right. I know that Etana, when she doesn't have her wisdom teeth, pull out how to say my numbers.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate you, Etana. I know it's said already, but I want to salute Chairman Amalia Teller, who is the leader of the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace and Reparations, as well as the African People Socialist Party and the Uhuru Movement. I think this is appropriate, especially understanding that, you know, we are students of his political theory, African internationalism. Because he's taught, and I've learned that any social movement has two strengths, and you heard it talked about today. It has people and the ideology, right? So the people and the ideology are the strength of any social movement. So for people like us, it means our job is to go to the people, arm the people with those ideas. Because as Marcus Garvey said, right, you know, a person who doesn't use their own mind, somebody else will use the mind for them. So I really feel it is important for us to talk about this today. When we talk about education today, we're not talking about going to some building and learning and things like that. The truth is that here in Long Beach, California, I really started learning my real education once I started getting kicked out of school.
Right.
To be honest, right? I started getting kicked out of school, and then I started going up to Black Studies meetings. I remember getting kicked out of school, going to Black Studies classes because my mom had decided to go back to school, and she had a lady named Omawali Files, Dr. Files. Dr. Files says, "Oh, she started calling me Professor O, and I was, 8-year, I wasn't that young, probably about a 10-year-old kid, a 10-year-old, 11-year-old kid getting kicked out of school, going to Long Beach State Black Studies Department, and Dr. Files called me professor. She said, and she'd take me into her office and have me put the grades on top of the paper and things like that. And she said, "You like this?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's cool. It's not like where I go to school." And she says, "Well, you got to finish that to get here, right?" But always understanding that like what I was being taught wasn't about just serving that institution. It was always about bringing it back here. I want to salute a guy who really wanted to come today, but he couldn't come. His name is Dr. Willie Elston. Dr. Elston really give it up, Dr. Elston. Dr. Elston. Like I said, all these people exist as what we in a Uhuru movement call African working class intellectuals, what Walter Rodney, the great Black Studies professor, had once called a guerrilla intellectuals, right? They came from an era in which they understood that you went to go get what you can get to bring it back to the people. So I remember I was going to a program that he had. It was called the Upper Bound Program. And it's neither about the program. This is the point here. I went to Upper Bound. I went to school and all this other stuff. But the point is the people, the African people I interacted with at those places. I want to give it up to somebody else who used to work right down the street from here at the Carmelitos. Her name was Viney Shillman. Viney Shillman was one of my real first teachers. That's his auntie, and that's basically an elder to my mom, who's back here. Alvin Shillman was a real teacher. And I don't know her education back down south, because I know here she worked Head Start or something like that. But she was a teacher 24/7. You're talking about a teacher 24/7, armed with the ability to be able to stand up right here. I remember being a kid going to, I went to St. Luke Baptist Church, Missionary Baptist Church. And that missionary was kind of important, right? Because the truth is that meant on Saturdays you weren't sitting at home. That meant on Saturdays you was down at the park handing out food. But the thing is, they actually taught me something. Taught me something that I bring into organizing. Because you know what? Even this was a church. It was never like, see, what you see colonizers, they come to the African community and they say, okay, if you want this food, you got to take this education first. You got to burn them witch bracelets. You got to not be African. That's not even what we did. Remember when they would take us down there, we give out the food in the tracks? I don't know if you remember that. What did they tell us to do? You give the people the food, you set the tracks down over here. So if they want to read it, they read it, but they don't have to get the food to do it. I mean, so even though it was that space, I understood that people like Agame Show and others were arming me with what it meant to be an educator for the people, for the people. So I wanted to say that. I was really excited to be here today because I am many people feel probably the most unlikely person to be standing up here, Black Studies professor with a PhD here. So I said, let's do this. I'm from Long Beach. Don, you kind of from Long Beach, even though you kind of from Compton, Buena Park. But, we claim you for today, right? I said, we're going to claim Don. Because a whole lot of people from Long Beach, they be saying other places. They're like, you from Watts. I said, man, I went to school with you. Tell me you from Watts. Don't side with me. But no, I'm from here, right? I'm from Africa. Let's be absolutely clear. I remember first, I was a kid walking down Santa Fe Avenue where I lived. Somebody rode up to me and he was on a bike. He said, "Where you from, homie?" I said, "I'm from Africa." He looked at me, he said, "No, you're supposed to say gang." I said, "Oh, I never get out." He walked rode around his bicycle confused, right? But that's important. That's what's put in me as a kid. People know me as mozzarella. Some of y'all know me as mozzarella. That name was given to me by my dad in the back. Mozzarella Ali means exalted roots, right? A couple different things, right? I learned. First off, that's when the book Roots came out. Like literally, remember he lifted children up and said, "Behold, the only thing greater than himself." And my dad did that to us, right? And I really want to give that up. But that also meant that my ancestry was meant to be held up high, right? So much of what we've been through, we are not. There's a guy named Cedric Robinson. He has this concept he calls the creation of the Negro in a book called Black Marxism, and he says that the Negro became consequence masqueraded as anthropology and history. Consequence masqueraded as anthropology and history. And that's an important point because what he means by consequence, right? So what they've done to us, they've allowed for that to become the story that they tell about us. And not just any sort of story that they tell about us. He says anthropology and history because where do you find anthropology and history? Inside the universities, inside the colleges. So that also means that this tradition that I'm standing in front of, this Black Studies tradition or whatever, right? It didn't begin in a college. It began against the tradition of the universities, right? That's important for us to understand, right? So this is many of us are here right now because of the attacks against DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. But we know that's just a new way to say the N word, right? DEI. People don't even know what DEI is. They get rid of all sorts of stuff that affect them and say, get rid of DEI. You know, now farmers in Central California are like, wait a minute, where my welfare check? You know what I'm saying? Because let's be clear. They stick you on WIC and cash aid so that money can come into their pockets. Because we know how hard it is for us to live off of cash aid, right? So it's about us being attached to this system so that they can have a payday. Now they trying to figure out how can I get the payday without money going to them. That's why we got to get in front of this whole thing right now, because they're gonna try to solve this crisis right now. They're gonna try to solve it at their own expense, right? That's why we have to get in front of this, right? That's why we're holding this webinar. So I wanted to say that I want to salute all of the organizations that are here today. We heard from the African National Women's Organization. I love everyone. I was saying, read the script, Etana, because there's some great stuff in that script. This is Amwell's 10th anniversary, y'all. Give it up to Amwell. And once again, who is, the first teacher? Because see, that's the coldest part, right? The coldest part, Amwell has two programs. One is called the Huru Kijiji Child Care Collective, right? The second one is called Arrest CPS. Arrest CPS. Because they're connected. Because here's what happened. They used, you go down south and white folks eat black-eyed peas and collard greens and speak with a drawl. They don't sound like that in Boston. Wicked piss side. They talk like that. Wicked piss side. So the white folks in Boston and the white folks in Mississippi come from the same place. How come the white folks in Mississippi speak with a drawl? They speak with a drawl because they've been around us, right? That's because so you tell me Black women got enough to teach and raise their kids, but then you put Black women and children and Black women in jail and separating children from our families because you say Black women don't know how to raise no kids? Give me a break. Give me a break. But I do remember this. I remember coming up. I guess we're past the statute of limitations. I can say this. I didn't understand what was going on. I remember me and all my kids, because I got kids, and my kids won't even walk down the street by themselves. They won't walk to the mailbox by themselves. But I remember as a kid, it'd be like my mom would have to go somewhere, right? She'd go to school or work or whatever it is, and she said, lock the doors, shut the windows, don't open the door for nobody. What y'all know about that? Don't open the door for nobody. My cousin Marquis laughed. She said, no. And I said, okay, or whatever. Mom, she just been. Then I realized, she thinking, if anybody know you and all your cousins up here by themselves, don't test the stove.
Oh, yeah.
Don't test the stove, right? Those was the lessons we got. But that's because you know that the state was coming after you.
Yes.
State was coming after you because, like I said, I'm the most unlikely person to be here, right? There was for about 4 years straight, for at least once a month, for at least 4 years straight, I got kicked out of school here, right? And I remember I hated it. I hated it. You know, I was from that generation. So the generation right before me, there was riots all throughout Long Beach schools because they had desegregated the schools and white folk didn't want to go to school with no black folks. So then they create these things called magnet programs, and they pulled us, our genius, from our neighborhood. So I grew up on the west side of Long Beach. Most of my life in a place called Springdale West Apartments, and I remember when they came through. I was in third grade or wherever they had us taking tests and things like that. They shipped us all the way across town. So I went to a place called Newcomb Academy of Excellence. They call it Newcomb Academy of Excellence. Excellent is a very complicated word because you can be excellent at a whole lot of things. You can be excellent at doing wrong, right? But then you also ask yourself, excellence, what is the excellence built upon? See, Newcomb is in a place called El Dorado Estates, right? In El Dorado, I've seen it, blew my mind. In the late 1960s, you could have bought a house in El Dorado Estates for like $30,000, $25,000. Homes over there no less than $2.5 million right now. In my life, not my lifetime, but in my parents' lifetime, right? Imagine dropping 25 grand and now you got over $2 million just off what your house is worth alone. And now you can give that to your kids, right? That's why we're talking about this colonial system here. It's not just the 1%. People want to say the 1%, united against the 1%. No, we're talking about that our oppression has produced, this magnificent wealth. Now the thing is, it's a system that we're all roped in. So this ain't no black nationalist, anti-white mumbo jumbo. That's not what this is. This is about us recognizing the system as it is, so that we all, because I don't want people living at my expense, but hopefully you don't want to live at people's expense either, right? That's why the way forward is all of us. But yeah, we went over there to El Dorado Estates and at this school, and I remember one day, everything we did was wrong. I got this. I'm telling you right now, I can't stand the smell of the toner of a printer because they would put us inside these rooms. They would put us inside this copier room as on-campus suspension. Right, me and my cousin Alfred, shout out my cousin Alfred. His son is getting full ride scholarship to the University of Wisconsin. So shout out to Alfred. Right. But we got kicked out so much, they said we can't send y'all home no more. This probably gonna dock us. So they created this in-house suspension. We was inside this copy room looking at this wall. And this back when they had the ditto machines, right? So like teachers coming there, they making them copies, and I'm sitting in this room. One day I said, I couldn't take no more. I said, I hate this school. I hate this school. I said, this school is racist. I didn't understand colonialism, but I understood racism. I said, this school is racist. I said, we was the smart kids at the school we went to. We was the smart kids. Then you bring us over here, and the only people that's in my classes for the most part is all the people that we came on the bus with and the dumb white people. I said, the dumb white people, and because that was other classes. Right, but then there was classes we was in and the underachieving. And I said, we was the smart kids. I said, this school is racist. I said, and I remember I stood up there and look, if you know my daughter Malika, you said, okay, she a chip off his old block. Because I said, from the lady who just answered the phones all the way to the counselors for the principal, I was like, you a racist, you a racist, you a racist, you a racist, you a racist. You were racist, right, Oprah. And like exactly. And you can catch this fade, and you can catch this fade like Oprah. But no, right? I told him that, and a couple different things happened. They took me back and illegally put me through an IQ test because your parents got to sign off on those tests, right? But they legally put me through one of those tests. But they remember when that test came back, Mom? That test came back, and what that test say? I was in 5th grade. the lowest score I had was 8th grade. The lowest score I had was 8th grade, right? So this is an important thing to understand. You're not colonized and oppressed because you are less than. You're colonized and oppressed because of the wealth and the brilliance that's coming out of you.
Yes.
That's important. That's important for people to understand, right? This because when you sit the other way around, then you begin to think that the way forward is their system, not your own self-determination, right? So I want to say this. This is not exactly what I was thinking about talking about, but Black community control of education. Black community control, when you see here Black community control, that means Black power. Black power, right? That means us the ability to do for ourselves, right? That means independence. Independence. It's important because when we want to do for ourselves, they say that's separatism. Separatism. But then when the United States in 1776 say we want to do for ourselves, they say that's independence. That's independence. But how they do for themselves? They did for themselves by us doing for them. Right? They did for themselves by us doing for them. And they call that independence. But then when we want to break away, they call it, it's not separatism. It's independence. But Black people control. But I tell you this. Shout out to Uncle Junior. Because I was across that way. I was at that school. And this either was from that incident or one of the other dozens of incidents that happened when I was at that school. My uncle, who was a Black student union organizer at Long Beach State at that time, he used to take me to things like the Black Consciousness conferences. I remember you know about that, Tasha. I know I could drop that and Tasha head will pop up. Because that's the era that made Tasha. Remember Black Consciousness Conference, and they had them and BSU rallies and Kwanzaa and all sorts of stuff. He did that stuff. So I remember he got his suit, got his legal pad. Him and my mom came down and they advocated for me. They advocated for me at that school, and that's Black community control.
Yes.
Right? That's Black community control. So I'll just say this and then I'll move it forward because I want to. We really here for us to talk, right? I'll say that. So I'm a Black studies professor, but what's the best part about that is that sort of I feel like what was Liam Neeson in that movie where he got a special set of skills or something like that. You know, I think that like I've got a special set of skills. You know. Like I said, shout out to Agame Shellman and them, because when I was a kid, it'd be Easter time or something like that, and they say, okay, Easter play. You know, everybody gotta take some passages. And I'd be like, Jesus wept. They'd be like, oh my God. You ain't saying Jesus wept, you too smart. I'd be like, Jesus wept. They said, no. You get Matthew 1 through 3. I'm like, it's like 27 verses over here. Homie Kapoor ain't Jesus wept, and I gotta read like 27 verses. I didn't know how I'm gonna do this, but I did it. Or like even honestly, I'm telling you, the structure through which how they even ran our Sunday school. I remember we'd all have the same story, and then each week somebody else would have to stand up and tell the story. I mean, I realized I was being trained for the stuff I'm doing now. I learned about Nat Turner. I learned about John Brown. I thought John Brown was Black. The only John Browns I knew was Black, and he was a Baptist man. He fought against slavery. So I was in college talking about John Brown was Black. I don't know what you're talking about. It was like John Brown was white. I said, but he was like Baptist man. He fought against slavery. His name was John Brown. Must have been Black, right? So we learned about Marcus Garvey. We learned about Malcolm X. We learned about all that stuff. Right? And that was important. That was important. And so I just want to say this. I'm really happy that I'm able to bring this expertise, this skill that I have to the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, of which I've been the president for 3 years. Thank you.
I was just in a moment.
No. So we're governed by something called the Revolutionary National Democratic Program. We are a mass organization under the leadership of the African Socialist Party. Yes. And what we do is we struggle for the democratic rights of African people. The struggle for democratic rights is important, but too often it's been in the hands of people who don't have the interest in liberating the poor and impoverished communities that we live in, right? Who here from Long Beach, LA, Compton, and you've seen that average of how much the rent is? I'm telling you, every time your rent come up, the anxiety that pulls over your body, right? But to know that, but when you begin to understand that that anxiety is causing somebody else a payday, that's when you need to say, okay, we need to stand up, right? We need to stand up. It's crazy. It's crazy. I've experienced this myself. So education is an important place to struggle around, because the truth is, whether you document it or not, this is an important place. This is where we all come in contact with the state. So I'm going to end you with this. My organization's position on education. It says, we demand free, compulsory, and comprehensive education for all Africans wherever we're located. Such an education must equip Africans for independent, self-reliant prosperity in this technology-driven era, and is based on our true history as African people who bring the totality of our own legitimate culture and experiences to the educational process. And this is for you, Mark. I know you're gonna like this one. It says, we demand free access to educational opportunities offered to Africans by countries like Cuba. We, as well, U.S. and other imperialist and neo-colonial governments' recognition of the legitimacy of such education, right? We need to have the ability to determine for ourselves, right? That, because what happens is a lot of people, especially even the last election, a lot of people say, oh, Black women are most educated. And it's actually true. Black women are most educated. But the crazy thing is, because of what happened in the last 50, or let's say 60 years, if you don't go to college as a Black woman, you gotta live the rest of your life in the indignity of what we call welfare slavery. That's literally only two options. You go somewhere, finish high school in some sort of post-high school education, whether it's some sort of CNA or whatever it is, or you literally can't work. I mean, there's only small parts of the United States where you can still maybe be the help or something like that. But we know a place like California, all that stuff went away. So you got African women who do go to school. When they go to school, they do. Black women got the highest amount of student loan debt, anywhere from $75,000 to $200,000 debt on average. So even if you do get a good job, you gotta give your money back. You ain't making the same as other people, right? So that's how they get us. So that's why it needs to be free. It needs to be free. And these are demands. The other thing too is, like I want to say, Black community control of education means that the whole community. I remember when I went to Newcomb, there was one Black person, actually one Black person at all that was at Newcomb, that worked at Newcomb. He was the custodian. But we all looked up to this. That was the leader. We need to empower them people. Because I tell you this, you work at a school, the person with the most power, the one who can turn off that alarm code and open them doors. Yep. I didn't tell you that. How they hold them summits? I didn't hold a summit. 200, 300 people show up. They don't charge a single penny. That's because the people that work, I mean, they organize bus drivers, custodians, parents, guardians, foster parents. It don't matter. Anybody that touched them children need to be under our bridge of what we understand as education, right? So there's so much more I could have talked about, and I had an outline to talk about, like I said, these attacks against DEI and all this other stuff. But we can open this up when it comes to the question and answer portion. But I'm just, like I said, I'm really happy to be here. One thing I did want to say.
All right, can you hear me? And Wasey, just go on and put up my picture. The thing that we were using, it died. So please just go on and just put up my picture for now. But I wanted to end by saying this. I wanted to say that, growing up in the part of Long Beach I lived in was dope. You know, we had African people, we had Mexican people, we had Filipinos. Let me know if y'all can hear us. Can y'all still hear us? Okay, thanks. So, but I remember at the very moment where our neighborhoods and our schools were turned into war zones. They were turned. A lot of people talk about the school to prison pipeline. The important thing, first and foremost, is that the schools themselves are have been turned into prisons, right? That's important for us to understand. First and foremost, that the schools themselves have been turned into prisons. When we understand this, but I also want to make note of the fact that I remember, at the moment that Black and brown people were turned against each other inside the prisons, our schools and our community became hellholes. So the reason why I love going to college, not because all this other nonsense I learned from them and all other no, but because Africans and Mexicans came together to fight for power and to bring that stuff back to the community, right? It was important for us to hear from out of it, because so much of us, because of the hell we live in, everybody, people see education as an escape, and we do everything to mimic this bourgeois culture. Y'all want to talk about that kid that died at that HBCU? That's not African culture. Beating people to death so they can join some collegiate organization. That was taught to us by them. That's colonizer culture and stuff like that. So that's not what it was about for me, right? Black and brown coming together. I was the BSU president, met y'all. That's when I first learned of Are. That's when I first learned about it. This is all important stuff we need to take with us. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to pass it over to the committee to pull up the call for resources. We'll move towards the call for resources, and from the call for resources, we'll also then move into the final portion of today, which is our community discussion. So can we pull up that slide on call for resources? Go ahead and change slides. Hopefully you can hear me. All right, cool. So everybody, so today we have a goal. The goal is to raise $250. The important thing about the work that we do, we are completely grassroots. That means, when we rent beautiful spaces like this, food, and please go and get some food. Go and get some food. I know some people practice in Ramadan. But if you ain't, go get some food, right? So food, literature, all this stuff. This is the completely grassroots, and it's an organization that depends on your contributions. That's important. The next thing that we have, which is important, is for the next thing of importance is membership. So first off, to donate. So to donate, you're gonna go to Uhuru, hashtag Uhuru West. They call that a cash tag, the dollar sign or whatever. So hashtag Uhuru West, or on PayPal, you can go to paypal.com/Uhuru West. So I'll kick that off with $50 from my organization, International Student Democratic Uhuru Movement. It's pledging $50. And our goal today is $250. Is there anybody who can match that? And I totally understand. You can't. Oh, Kevin. So 50. So I think it's to $150. Sorry, $100. Anybody else? So if not 50, like 25? Okay, so there's two people, 25, three people, 25. So that takes us to 175. So that leaves us on. Wow. So that's four people, 25. Five people, 25? Wow. So that's $225. All right, so that takes us almost to where we need to be. And what about $5? $5. Okay, so that takes us to $10 away. $10 away. So what I'm going to do, so that takes us to 240, and I'm going to add myself another 10, and take us to 250. So see, that's important, everybody. Just clap. So to do this, you can go cash, app, PayPal, or you can also we have a donation can over there. The next thing I want you all to do is to join. If you are an individual or you are an organization, consider joining Black is Back, a coalition for social justice, peace, and reparations. To do so, you can go to blackisbackcoalition.org/join, and you can join these as an individual or as an organization. If you join, the base membership for an individual is $25. So you say, and for international based organization, that is $100. Sorry, $200. For a US based organization, that's $150. And if you're just a local organization, that's $50 annual organizational fee. So I know some of y'all can't speak for your orgs. So if you want to go and take that back to where your organizations and consider that. You know, Black Back organization is an organization of organizations. So that means that we're a coalition of anti-colonial African Black organizations. And let me show you all the different levels. So change slides. So you got the Queen Mother Asante Y level. That is $100 or more. Sorry, $1,000 or more. We got the Chokwe Lumumba level. Shout out to Chokwe Lumumba. Shout out to him. He's the New African People's Organization. Malcolm X grassroots passed away about a decade ago. That's $500 or more. Change slides. Marcus Garvey level, that's $365 or more, or that's just $1 to $1. That's important, right? Because how much they done slandered Africa for just $1 a day, you can give your money to some old colonizer organization that you don't even know what they do, right? So that's important. We taking this in our own hands. Change slides. Amir Barak, $120 or more. And Fannie Lou Hamer says nobody's free until everybody's free. She also says you can pray until you faint, but until you get up and try to do something, you know, God is not going to put it in your lap, right? So that's important. Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer, another person. You ever heard Fannie Lou Hamer sing? Beautiful voice. But this lets us know what times of political struggle does. Here's a one beautiful voice. You can find her music. Go to something called like the SNCC songs, or I can get the folk song. But beautiful. But you know what? She did her work. You know what she said? She said, "I fought to get my people inside the Democratic Party, and now I'm fighting to get them out." Right? Because she was fighting for Black freedom. So Fannie Lou Hamer, I think.
Oh, we can no longer hear you, President Matsamela. Uhuru, I think the sound cut out.
That you can join on when you join as a member of the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparation. So once again, I want to give everybody here a round of applause. And in this last segment, what we're going to do is we're going to move toward discussion. Everybody that was a panelist, I want you to bring your chairs up. Let's get cozy.
And while that's happening, I'll go around and collect y'all. Anybody write anything on their index card?
So if you have your index card and you got questions and you want to present them that way, Don and Etana are selecting the questions. And if not, just come on up, grab the mic, and let's talk. So if you are part of the panel, and I want to give a shout out to Dr. Kim. What's your name, Dr. Kim? Oh, Dr. Kim is good. Dr. Kim is good. So all the panelists, if you were a panelist, please feel free to come up and join us as part of as we move now to our community discussion.
Yes, because is Comrade Mecca here? Where Comrade Mecca at? Oh, she went around the way. Maybe Comrade Tasha, maybe you can answer this question actually that I have. We're gonna give Comrade Tasha a second to come up, and also, any other, of course, our parents, right, our mothers, our African women that are present, right. So I want to ask our annual representatives and the women here, like, how can we strengthen, right, the connection between, for example, our student working group and the African National Women's Organization? How can we students protect our first teachers as they have so done for us all of our lives, right? Uhuru. I was saying, how can the students protect and strengthen, right, our first teachers, right, as you continuously pour into us, Uhuru?
Okay, tell me who you mean by students.
So students, right, youth and students, right, all of us, y'all produce today, y'all today's first teachers, right? So how can our radical student organization, right, our progressive student organization, how do we strengthen our relationship and our, this synchronization, right, with our first teacher?
Okay, I see. So where that takes me, the first thing that comes into mind is that like when we use cultural references as blueprints for kind of conceptualizing who we are and what we do, that traditional, and by that I mean African traditional, indigenous traditional, other traditional, pre-industrial era concept traditional has an extended notion of family, right? So this co-opted, it takes a village, they don't even use it anymore, it's so co-opted. But yes, right? And so the parenting and modeling is a communal piece, first of all, right? So yes, the babies are with the mother,
yes,
right? But the baby is observing, and the toddler, and as we're coming up, we are in participation with, right? Which is one of the reasons I would offer that folks who get engaged in revolutionary thinking, we often find that our children despite, you know, they take for granted what they've learned from us, but we also often find that they're still seeking after some of these things, these values that we're like, you know, trying to cultivate and, you know,
Right.
a consciousness away from.
And I would unite with that because my grandmother is here, and it's the first time I've ever gotten her to come to, you know, one of my, you know, one of these radical events and stuff like that. And it was my grandmother and my mother who gave me the church, right? So as I've strayed from that in my raging atheism, right, it is still right. Now I did that on purpose, right? But I would have nothing without those ways and the oratory skills and the confidence instilled in me, you know, without that. So even today, I'm pursuing that. I'm strengthening that, right? And also, anybody, y'all young people, you got time to talk with your grandparents, get on your iPhone, hit record, period. I say,
what can young folks who are already radicalized, right, and thinking in this way, criticals do to nurture is to continue to pursue that path, create that just world, like what organizations like the Arrest CPS is doing, what organizations as we fight for a just world, the appropriate distribution of wealth, and how we understand that, right, as we practice mutual aid by literally strengthening our bodies, our minds, and our spirits, right? That is the give back. You know, that is the give back, and keeping yourself strong.
Annual African National Women's Organization, which I love, was formed for the purpose of, and we talk about the Hulu Kijiji Child Care Collective. First off, everybody could volunteer for the Hulu Kijiji Child Care Collective, right? I got a brother who's excellent with children, probably the best person I know with children, and I think that's important. You know, one of my favorite films is a film called Sankofa. Give it up if you've ever seen Sankofa. And in it, there's a guy who his name is Noble Ali, and he participates in the beating of African women who ran away because the slave master made him participate in that beating, and then the sister dies. But the matriarch of the film, she saves the child. The guy Noble Ali has a love interest. Her name is Nunu. Nunu tells him, he says, you need to decide whether you're going to be a beast or a man. You know, she says, you need to decide whether you're going to be a beast or a man. And this is important, but the first thing she asked him to do, who knows who's seen that film? What does Nunu have Noble Ali do?
Put the baby on his back.
Yeah. Puts the baby on his back. He finds his true humanity by taking care of the child, right? So the thing is, we got to free up sisters so that sisters aren't, parenthood isn't a burden, right? So I think that's, but also understand that that's sort of, we're talking about reclaiming our humanity, right? And there's no such thing as man's work and woman's work, you know, throwing that stuff out the window and stuff like that. So that's. So I know that's what all, and students got time. Students got time, right? You got time, and make sure you continue to give that time back. I see some people departing. I want to give this statement because I know we spoke to it, but here's a hands off a rule statement for a guy named Mahmoud Khalil. It says, "Victory to Palestine, hands off Mahmoud Khalil." Early this morning, the Israeli military launched a new wave of airstrikes across the Gaza Strip, murdering over 400 Palestinian men, women, and children. Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition vehemently condemns the ongoing, escalating genocidal slaughter by U.S.-backed Israeli settler colonial state against the people of occupied Palestine. Over the past year, the settler colonial state of Israel, armed and funded by the U.S., has killed more than 100,000 Palestinians, with unrelenting airstrikes destroying schools, hospitals, mosques, entire neighborhoods, and refugee camps. More than 2 million Palestinians are facing genocidal conditions of starvation and disease after Israel cut off access to food, medicine, and fuel. The colonial powers, however, have failed in crushing the will of Palestinian people to fight for their freedom and self-determination. As the Anti-Colonial Freedom Free Speech Coalition, we stand in deep unity with the Palestinian people and their heroic resistance to brutal colonial occupation in their land by the illegitimate Zionist regime. We call for the immediate release of Mahmoud Khalil, the Palestinian student activist at Columbia University, who was kidnapped from his apartment by federal agents on March 8, 2025. The government has detained Khalil for exercising the right to free speech, to advocate for the liberation of Palestinian people. We say hands off Mahmoud Khalil, hands off Palestine. The African, indigenous, Mexican, Filipino, Cuban, Venezuelan, and other oppressed peoples of the world stand together with Palestine in a united front against colonialism, our common enemy. It goes on to say the state of Israel is an illegitimate white nationalist colonial settler state resting on stolen Palestinian land. The current wave of brutality by Israeli settler state is only the most recent in the history of colonial genocide in land and displacement spanning back over 70 years and actually over 100 years. African people in the U.S. and around the world have always stood shoulder to shoulder with Palestinians in our struggle against colonialism. The African People's Socialist Party Chairman Omali Shatella, founder and leader of the Hula movement, has stated that Israel is part and parcel of the capitalist world order revolving around the colonial economy with its origins in enslavement and colonization of African people. Hands Off Uhuru was formed to advance the counteroffensive for anti-colonial free speech following the July 29, 2022 FBI raids on Chairman Omali Shatella and the Hulu movement. We call on all of our organizational individual members mobilized in support for Palestinian resistance and into the U.S.-backed genocide in Gaza. Demand the immediate release of Mahmoud Khalil and the end of all raids and arrests. Palestinian people within the U.S. who have organized in support of liberation of their homeland. Free Palestine, down with colonialism, hands off the food. So that's important. That was important for us to say because, like I said, I mean, we got students who've been absolutely terrorized, and the whole point here is to crush the will and to crush also the support, and then also have students. You wonder why when you go into a store and there's somebody who comes from another colonized country where they catching heck like us in that country, but over here they decided with white power. Yeah, that's because the state wants to do that. The state wants to push them into that position, right? It wants to forcefully push them people into that position. And by us standing up and standing arm in arm with people, we pull them back to this side. We let them know they don't have to live scared, and that's what this is about. So I just wanted to say that, and let's open this up. We still got like over half hour worth of community conversation and question. We got Comrade Sherry on. And make sure this is we speak into it so that they can hear on the computer.
I wanted to follow up with your question as to how do the youth or the students, the young, help the mothers. I think the best way that I could say this is to give your parents grace for the things that you are learning in school that you did not know, because they didn't know it, right? We are all coming into a understanding over time. And so giving your parents grace will allow them to learn from you. And I think that's the strongest thing that you can do for our nurturers, our parents, our elders, is to give them grace and to be able to understand, you might have to show them how to work the computer. You know what I'm saying? It's that those little things. My mother called me, and this November, my mother called me, and she said, I need to fill out my ballot, and I want to do it with you. And I knew why she wanted to do that, because she knows that she has an understanding. She knows that I know more, and I can explain it to her in a way that she will be able to understand and make her choice. And so, although I was like opposed, I'm like, you know, I got my thoughts about it. Right. And so, but I sat there and I went through everything with her, and I explained it to her, and I helped her come to her own decision. And that was empowering for me and her in our relationship, because in that moment, she took aside the fact that that she was my mother and I was her daughter. And she was then learning from me. And it opened the door to segue for me to teach her about other things that I would like for her to, you know, start to tap into. And so with that, I would say just giving your parents grace, understanding that there is a shift that happens where you then become the teacher to your parent. And so accepting that, owning that, because it does help the community at large around us, when not just the youth are growing, but then they got the strength and the fight of the elders behind them. I said.
Can I mean, you have no idea how much that applies to my specific situation and stuff like that. Love you, Suzanne and Evangelist back there. So I have just one more question for, you know, our professionals up here. So we have Dr. Masamela and we got Dr. Tasha. So in the last 5 years, we saw something that we really, really, really need to pay attention to, right? We had COVID go on, right? And in that, we had the Brown Act change so much that technically here in the United States, education was made completely accessible, right? If we're thinking about modes and how people were able to access these things, and how all classes across fields, depths, and breadths were made completely accessible. Now, we here in 2025, under this version of domestic colonialism, and the Department of Education is bending over for a walking Cheeto. What are these contradictions, and how do y'all see what I'm doing there? What do we do with that there contradiction, right? The opening up, right, due to the response of response to crisis, and then this closing back, right, under a mythical so-called, you know, cutting back on government spending. What do y'all say for that contradiction? Uhuru.
Well, what I want to say first is that I'm not a doctor, I'm not a professor, and it's okay, and I'm not a professional. And actually, I absolutely stand in that, and it's part and parcel of how I think of community self-education, right? I went to schools, you know, but anything of value that I learned, like my Tamala said, I know you're about to remember those Black Consciousness conferences, right? You know, everything I have learned, and the way I've learned to think about society and be audacious in that, I learned at home. I learned which is why I talk about kitchen table. I'm a kitchen table radical. My understandings have only like later in life been shaped by the authentic and representative Black radical tradition. I am a child of, some of us still know who Runoko Rashidi is. Some of us remember Ashraf Kwesi. Some of us remember when, right, Leonard Jeffries and them were in the community, you know, nurturing the community with knowledge, among others, certainly, right? And remember that time, you know, and because of my parentage, I got to have a front row seat. And moreover, because I was listening to grown folk talk at a time when Black folk were talking about community, we're talking about, right? That's that's how I came into that. But in terms of this question of what do you do with the contradiction of, if I understood your question correctly, the contradiction of what the Department of Education was established to do and what its dismantling represents, right? Yeah, I mean, I would say that as it's been said and being said more often in this space, that the democratic space that is opened up in the US has been under our pushing for democratic space in the typically thought of waves, right? Of notions of citizenship and what it should provide and whatnot, right? So our push for our own space has given birth to all of these institutions, at least post. Well, let me take that back. Not so much all of these institutions, but it's certainly since the time of the Housing Discrimination Act and Civil Rights Act and Voting Act and whatnot, and coming along with the televising of that, you know what I'm saying? Because there's a cultural component in terms of how we understand that, right? But in terms of what these people are trying to turn back, they're trying to turn back FDR. They're trying to turn back the influence of socialist thinking in America, right? And in terms of dealing with that contradiction, I think that one of the most vital things that needs to happen in this moment is for that understanding to be spread, right? Because certainly Black folk need to stop being afraid of the S word and understand how systematically that thinking was depressed, oppressed, repressed, and stamped out in American society. So we need to really understand the historicity and the purposes of these institutions that they're knocking out. Like he keeps talking about McKinley, we need to know what that means. We need to know what he's talking about when he talks about McKinley's age, right?
Yeah, one thing I can say is that, like Sister Tasha said, there's been no democratic space that's opened up in this country, in the modern world, that hasn't been because African people have all the democratic space happened because African people have pushed for freedom. Whether we're talking about class, workers' rights, gender, everything, come from the spearhead of African people fighting for freedom and liberation. I say that because there's an excellent book called Razasi Guerra No by a lady named Lorena Oropeza, and she documents how there was something called the Chicano Moratorium. This is the 55th year of the Chicano Moratorium, and young Chicano kids said we learned how it was to embrace ourselves because we watched boxing and Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali rejected the war. He embraced his identity. He said those people had no problem with him. So they learned even in that struggle how to challenge the status quo by arguing with us. By arming up and struggling side by side with us. So that's important. That's important to understand the role we played in that. And the other thing is, so I say that because of public education. The first public schools were created, even going back to the 1700s, around African people. This idea of public education comes from African people. During the Reconstruction period, after the Civil War, we saw schools being built. The people love to talk about, the Freedmen's Bureau. Freedmen's Bureau spent $50,000 to build Black schools. Black people raised, fresh out of slavery, $1 million of their own money, 1860s money. $1 million. Black people raised the United States government puts $50,000 in. Black people raised, what's that? That's 20 times $1 million of their own money when folks ain't had no money for schools. The difference is that money went into a pot or a school system that still didn't serve us. And so the money, so we telling people to Black community control education in schools is telling people we need to redirect that for our own self-interest. And part of that actually has to do pushing back against the general understanding of Brown versus the Board of Education. The National People's Democratic Uhuru Movement was formed in 1991. Well, in its modern shape in 1991. And in that founding document, Chairman Omali Shatella says this: impediment should also act to challenge the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education Supreme Court decision that allegedly desegregated the U.S. colonial school system, but instead codified the permanent domination of African education by colonialist white people who are hostile to our interests. Because I'm telling you this, right? And most mothers here will know. I was from that generation when people said, if your kid's going to get a good education, send them across town, right? And I came back bitter and angry. You know, I came back bitter and angry. Like I said, I mean, for once a month for 4 years straight, I got kicked out of school. I fought. But you know what? Even in that, I realized that I was lucky that my mama brought me back. I was lucky that my mama brought me back because they was not able to break me. You know what I mean? My mama always said, Kunta went to school and Kunta graduated. You know, they didn't turn me into no toga. That's what you say, right, Mom? So this is important. So Brown was based on the colonialist assumption that African children are incapable of learning in classrooms where there are no white children. And this is important because, with all due respect to Kenneth Clark, right? You know, that's kind of Kenneth Clark, he did the whole dog thing and stuff like that. Because they never asked the kids why. Ask the kid why when you do the dog incident, right? You know, why? You don't like and stuff like that. Right. Because who's that trying to appeal to? That ain't appealing to us. You know, that ain't appealing to us, you know? My mama going more about that, about, you know, the dogs and stuff. But to bolster this position pushed by the liberal African petty bourgeoisie, these social studies were made, which revealed the self-hatred of African children in segregated school situations. But like I said, I mean, there's a study that I show people, South Carolina schools at the turn of the 20th century. Black folks tended to go to school longer. Black folks did more, like the average daily attendance was always higher for Black people. The difference is Black schools were open like at best half the time of the year. Why? Because this system wanted Black kids in the field. Well, my grandfather's place called Coshada, Louisiana. Trump called all these other countries S-hole countries. I tell you what, it's an S-hole country, Coshada, Louisiana. You know, Coshada, Louisiana, a terrible place. You know, until today. And he was born there. My great grandfather was almost lynched in Coshada, Louisiana. So my grandfather and his family moved to Dallas, Texas. That's where my grandfather went to high school. But he told me, I'm old enough to remember seeing older African men with the fingers missing, right? The fingers missing, and you realize how they lose the fingers. Because my mama, you know, said I come back, oh no, I don't want to shake Bishop, I don't want to shake Deacon, what's his name? He got the fingers missing, and boy, he lost some fingers in a cotton gin. Why? Because they was young, and they can go in there and kids can go in there and rip out them seeds, rip out them fibers, so that they can get as much as possible. So you remember them older deacons with their fingers missing, but they had hands bigger than I don't know what, you know. So it'd always be like, how come you can't read very well? And then I was always told he stopped going to school in 4th grade. But I always thought, man, he dropped out of school in 4th grade. That's not it. School dropped out of them at 4th grade. See, my grandfather was from Coshada, Louisiana. And if you was in Coshada, Natchitoches, all these other places, you did not have anything past primary school. Unless you moved to Dallas, unless you moved to Shreveport, you did not have anything after that. That's why Black community control of education is so important. That's why we can't fall for this idea that like the only education we can get is in our schools. So I would say big up Organization. I don't care how you pray at night, but I remember she wasn't just talking about me praying, she wanted me to stand up. So she would say that, lift your head up, stand up. I had I had a preschool, a daycare provider. Her name was Miss Kennedy. Miss Kennedy. I remember remember we used to take Miss Kennedy over there by Polly? And Miss Kennedy, we were saying kid. Miss Kennedy said, you know what? I was young, probably 6 years old. Miss Kennedy says, you are not a kid. She says they always gonna want to make you think you're an animal. So you're not a kid. You are a boy. So she pulled out this old primer, to have the letters with the words, letters and animals and stuff. Go to K. She said, go to K. What's a kid? That's a goat. Are you a goat, Michael? No, I'm not a goat. No, you're not a goat. You are a man. You are a boy. You are a human being. So don't call yourself a kid or any other things. That's the meaning. That's what she told me, right? That's the old school wisdom she gave to me, right? But people make us want to be ashamed of that. So it goes on to just talk about that, how we must state that Brown versus Board of Education is based on the very same racist assumptions it was allegedly designed to counter, and that the real way forward is through the assumption of control over Black education by the Black community itself. And just to say that an article that I passed out to you all for you all to check out was something we did in San Diego in response to COVID-19. Because you're correct, it did open up a certain level of possibility and what we know we can do for ourselves, Don. So we started our own school, basically. We started our own school because remember when the COVID pandemic popped off, kids were sitting at home for 3 weeks, nothing. School systems are longer and didn't do nothing. So we started our own thing. It's called a horse chalet. The horse chalet, it means freedom school. And it was a virtual freedom school, we called it. Put together a whole curriculum, and it's still out there. So that's important. So I just wanted to share that. I just wanted to share that with you because we, we put that $1 million, and that's important. That $1 million, the difference now versus the 1860s is now we have the ability to understand what it means to do for ourselves underneath revolutionary leadership to direct us where we need to go. Because at that time, we put that $1 million into the basket of the Republicans, and Republicans sold us out, right? They don't put the money into the basket of Democrats. Democrats sold us out, right? Because now we need to take that and put that power in our own hands.
Right. I was just thinking on a question that Don was asking, and just this whole conversations about DEI and just the threat to public education. And I started thinking about public education. And I think that this whole conversation about DEI is starting to make me feel like to get us distracted in the fight, to fight for something that wasn't even benefiting us in the first place, right? So when I think about my education under DEI, it was terrible. Like most people said, the best things I learned was self-taught. The things I learned about myself in the real world was self-taught, right? So how can we really, especially adding on to the question that Don said, how can you and student activists and organizations help support the mothers who are the first teacher of the child? Well, there's a lot of parents that really want to homeschool their kids. And even it's been researched, I think by Naeem Akbar was saying that, our kids are smarter before they even go to school. Once they go to school, they actually become less intelligent, right? So I know as a mother, I have my son, my kids here, and I really wanted them to participate because, I tell them, go to school. They come back and they act like they left prison. They really describe, I say, oh, you want to go to certain school? No, I don't want to go to prison, right? And it really breaks my heart because it's like, you're there 8 hours of the day, and I know that you could learn whatever you learn in the school in 2 hours, right? But we oppress. So as a mother, we're trying to make a living for our kids, right? We have so many other responsibilities that we have to, do to make sure we raise good kids. We got to figure out what their talents are, what their gifts are, right? We got to put bread and, food on the table. So if we could, direct, some of the conversation or not just the just something that could come out of this is how can we really create, you know, and support people who are homeschooling their kids or want to homeschool their kids, and how can we create our own educational system? I think this is the best time to get out of it.
Right. So that's important. So important thing, and I'll pass others. I just want to say, and I know Sherry wanted. So come on up, Sherry. So get a seat. You like get a seat. But so one of the things that I think is important. You out? Peace out, Kev. So one thing I felt was important for us to say is that this is it's a trap if you think that the goal is to quote get into defense of DEI. That's the trap. And here's what I mean by that is that sort of one side of the colonial wing attacks DEI. The other one wants you to just defend, which is actually a conservative position, right? So you got reactionaries and conservatives. That's all we're being taught. No, what we're saying is build Black community control of education, right? So that means, you know, you're gonna struggle over the resources. I mean, they just saying DI so they can take over resources. So the thing is, and that's gonna come all the way down to even the resources you get for homeschooling and stuff like that. So it's not a situation in which, but I hear part of the sentiment, right? So the sentiment is, well, that wasn't working for us anyway. So, because it's like for example, like. Right. No. So I'm doing it. But the way in which we do for ourselves is in an anti-colonial struggle. It's not in it's in to build what's called dual and contending power. And part of that has to do with the making sure that like those resources that they've used that are our resources, we redirect that stuff back to us and to understand in that process. So in that process, we building for our freedom and preparing ourselves to govern even before the freedom comes. So that looks like homeschools. That looks like if it works for your community, charter schools. That looks like if it works for your community, fighting against the budget cuts for your public schools. So it looks like all of them, right? But it's not because those are things, but it's about, you know, us struggling for the democratic, but it's also about places like this. You know, I remember as a kid, you know, my mama, she would take us to all sorts of events. Anything that was going on, she had us there, just like you have with your kids. And that is what education is. And it was that let me understand that Newcomb actually was not education, right? It actually was not education, right? Well, it was a sort of education. It was a colonial education. But when they couldn't break me, they said, okay, he's got to go. So we do have to recognize our power, but also don't want to get caught. That's not about getting caught in their trap of like what they call survival program or like I don't know, you know, this thing where it's like, yeah, you know, because you hear people say, well, so I'll just say this, like when it comes to boycott, we say don't just buy black, but buy black power, right? So use your spending in a way that it redirects towards us development and self-determination. So I'm cool with that. You know, like one of our children go to a regular school, brick and mortar school. One of our children is homeschooled, and that's what we do. And it's best for both of them at this time, you know. And on Monday, the kid from the school down the street goes to school in green on Monday, on green last Monday, and pinches an aide that works at the school because she didn't have on green. Yeah. Right. So African black boy pinches this lady because she don't have on green, and this lady says that she claims she bruised, and I was like, oh, she was a white teacher. I was like, how'd you know? It's like, come on, she bruised from a pinch. Come on now. I mean, this is ridiculous, right? But it's like you got this young boy in middle school, probably 6th, 7th grade, already trying to be deemed some sort of sexual assault because he did exactly what their colonial holiday says, pinch somebody on. So we showing up for him. We're showing up for him because that's what it's about. That's black community control. Because see, the thing is that we know that this ain't the end step. The end solution is freedom for us, complete self-government. What Tasha was talking about. But as a part of that struggle for community control, the first step in that struggle for community control is, remember in Lion King when he says, everything the light touches, is ours. You know what I'm saying? Everything that touches is ours. Because I tell you this, you go right down the street to Bixby Knolls, there's certain communities over in Bixby Knolls that they got that same understanding. And we ain't got to talk about them people, but we know who they are. Some go on in they churches or whatever. Some going on in their schools. And even you raise it up, they say, we got it. And the police back off. They back off, okay, they're going to handle it. But anything happening in our community, we have to look towards them. So that's important. Sherry, he's like, Matamala, stop talking.
Yeah, Sherry, let's hear y'all. Sherry gonna give us the last free word, and then I got to get back on script, y'all.
That's
right
right,
now.
that's right.
No, I saw a couple hands.
Oh, hold on. President Matamala has. Yeah.
I saw a couple people.
If there's some other comments, I can hold because I have to come back.
Yeah.
I saw some cards. Did your grandma have a card?
Well, grandma would take notes. She taking
notes.
That's where I get that from.
She a red letter Bible person.
I did want to mention because
not red letter Bible. Did you hear?
You got the red letter Nelson Bible with all the highlights in it.
Question over here. Yes.
Oh, here we go.
Not a question, but I really like what you were saying about the survival programs and what you were saying about, like homeschooling your children. I'm going into education and obviously I'm organized in the community, but like what we did was we made like a people's university and like a people's school because we understand that, it's important to have that education program that's absent from these institutions. And that's, these institutions, the state, they're always a tentacle of the state, like you were saying. They're always going to, funnel the kids into prisons, and they're never going to be like what we need to be taking care of our children, to be nurturing our children. And so it's important to take from like that radical tradition of, it's not just about the classroom, and it's not just about, the math and the English and all that stuff. It's about the history of your ancestors and the storytelling and the food that you make in the community with each other. It's about the mutual aid. And like I think Fred Hampton says, and like the Black Panthers say, it's about survival pending revolution, and we know we have to take care of each other so that we are able to wage that radical tradition and actually come out with like a tangible result. So that's really important. And yes, that's all I have. Oh, that's all I have to say. But yeah.
Uhuru, comrade.
I just wanted to mention, as a homeschool parent myself, I took my daughter out of public school 2 years ago, my oldest. And it was really challenging because now I am the full time. There is no break. I have to make the schedule. I have to do this curriculum. I didn't find curriculum that aligned with me spiritually nor politically. So this created a challenge. And we talked about what do we do. There are resources out here that 2 years into homeschooling, I'm just now finding out about it. So I think as a community, we have to understand that America operates first as a business. So we need to understand the resources, as you were pointing out, comrade. We need to understand the resources that are available to our community, and we need to collect. And we need to do that now, not later. We need to start collecting now. Like I just found out a few days ago about the CEO Act, Children's Educational Opportunity Act of California, which awards parents $17,000 annually for private schooling, charter school, so that you can pick what school your child goes to. This is money that I had no idea about 2 years ago when I started my homeschool parent journey. So that means there's a whole lot of money on the table that is being cleared out, reallocated, as you said. And so really what we need to be doing is figuring out where that money is and encouraging the parents to step out there and go take the chance to get those resources, because once we can start allocating those funds properly where they need to be, the school that was created would have enrollment would look $17,000 a year per child. I think that could go a whole long way in creating the schools that will really educate our children in the way that we see fit.
Right. I just want to say, I really, political education, right? Educating people on the system, how it works. So, for example, a lot of people think like property taxes is how the schools get money, but actually, number one way the schools get money is ADA. It's called average daily attendance. That's why in certain systems, that's why they come into Springdale and have all our kids go over to or have a bunch of us go across town because that's how they fund their schools. They fund their schools through that pipeline of the resources, like you said. So letting people understand that and demanding it. That's sort of with Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and what? Reparations. Understanding what that means to demand those resources. I just want to say this, like in 1981, the African People's Socialist Party held its first Congress. That was also the year that Ronald Wilson Reagan, he's got 6 letters in all 3 of his names. Ronald Wilson Reagan, just saying, was elected president. And what came to office, there was also a guy named George Duke Major, right? And they really made their position attacking Black women, anti-welfare, things like that. So they came in, and he also said he's to make America great again. But he didn't. So they came in by cutting back. Their goal was to cut back. The Democrats and others said, okay, we need to defend welfare. But what we said was, they say cut back, we say payback. To hell with food stamps, we demand reparations now. And that's what we're saying with Build Black Community Control of Police. They say cut DEI, we say Build Black Community Control of Education in schools. So you flip it. That way they don't have us on the defense. We raise the contradiction. You have them on the defense. We fight in every arena possible. So like I said, you fight for the homeschools, you fight if the charter, you fight in the arena of charter, if that works for your community at that time, you fight in the arena of public. You don't give up no space. And then you organize every single person in that. So I really appreciate what you're talking about, because that $17,000, that means something. Yeah. Right? Like what it means to be able to turn a portion of your house into, or your apartment into educational space. So we got to arm people with this knowledge. Yeah. Right. That's what we talk about. We got to arm people with that knowledge. They do that at the Joko hour.
They sure do.
Go to Joko Collective on YouTube, learn them Jokos, and see how that works. So do we have everybody? Is that everybody that wants to say something? Yeah, I know it's still some food, right?
Y'all going back there and get, what's up?
I've never been here before.
Come on, welcome, you family.
Step closer, we got a short corridor. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like what you said about the wherever we're at in life, wherever we're at to actually, because like what I do in order to work within the public school system is I'm always there. I just advocate for my kids because there are a bunch of resources that we don't know about. I'm under the LAUSD umbrella and whatnot. So there's a bunch. I always say LAUSD is like Walmart. They have what you need there, but you just gotta find somebody willing to show you where it's at, or you just gotta go up and down the aisle. So, and then I started with LAUSD Open BSAP. It was Black students and parents, or something like that.
Student Success Program.
Black Student Achievement Program.
Yeah. So I ended up keep showing up. I kept showing up, and then they started a parent thing, and I'm in the northern region area of that, and not in the main LA. The main LA part gets more funding than we do out in the valley, right? So, because we have a smaller number of our people out there and whatnot, but it's open to everybody, and not just our people, because you got to be inclusive because under LAUSD umbrella and whatnot. But that's where it's at. Just finding those resources, did not know that was a resource.
Listen, I just learned about it. I'm like,
And sharing those resources and just showing up and participating. You don't have to be the greatest person. You might not get your name written down in the history book, but if you just do anything, just to take the step forward. And that was it.
Yes.
That's
Uhuru. Thank you so much, Comrade Sis. Yes, and we got the announcement. And let me tell y'all something. Last year I did observations at Boynton Park High School. I graduated from that high school in 2013, and I'm talking about 2024 last year, right? They got them babies still using the same history textbooks that was there when I graduated in 2013. And I'll just leave you with that. So y'all, let us move on to the announcements portion. So the Black is Back Coalition is having its 9th annual electoral campaign school. And we're gonna wait for the our Zoom. Yes. Yes, my unity with my Zoom moderators and for their patience with us, right? So we have our announcements. We got the Black is Back 9th election. Got it. Register today for the Black is Back Coalition 9th electoral campaign school. That'll be on April 12th and the 13th. And y'all can go right to tinyurl/BIB9elect. Sounds very simple, right? tinyurl/BIB9elect. Okay, then we've got African Liberation Day coming up at the World Beat Center in San Diego. That'll be at 2100 Park Boulevard. That's always a good time. Yes, join the African People's Solidarity Committee for their march to discuss violence against women, colonialism, and the Desi Woods Fight Back campaign. That will feature Yejide Orenmula, our president of ANWO, and also Penny Hess, chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee. And most important, next week, we got the Liberation Lives Community Awards and Gala, a fundraising event hosted by ANWO, the African National Women's Organization, where they will be celebrating a decade of organizing African women. Join us for an unforgettable evening of celebration, delicious food, inspiring talks, and live music. You can register there at tinyurl.com/ANWO Gala. Very simple. Final slide, y'all. We want to thank y'all and remind everybody that Black is back. Uhuru.
Uhuru, yeah, so just one last thing, we talked about educating ourselves, right? We do have literature in the back. We have books, and they're even on sale today. So after we're done, if you see any books you're interested in, we can give you the sale prices. There's newspapers. Make sure you take the February, January edition of the newspaper, absolutely free. If you have a March edition of the newspaper, only $1. So we got to be able to promote, our own learning. That's what's important. That's absolutely important. So that's Black Community Control of Education, right? So I really appreciate being a part of here and today. Anybody else want to say? What is there to say? This is wonderful. Yeah. Right on. And thanks to Nile Valley Wellness. This really is amazing.
Oh, thank y'all so much. Thank you so much. Bro, thank you so much. Great work. Yes. Uhuru, to our Zoom moderator.